Welcome to the Good Karma Sport Fishing Podcast. I'm your host, Captain Ryan Van Fleet. Hey guys, thanks for tuning in. So today I want to talk to you guys a little bit about African pompanos. And now you guys all see the videos out there. You see the guys catching them on jigs and all this good stuff. Well, we've caught a few really nice African pompanos on jigs, but here's how we caught them. Couple things. First, we were the very first ones to the wreck, and the wreck hadn't been fished in like a week or so, and we were 3 to 4 days out from the full moon, so the fish were really stupid. So when we got there, I think the fish were just like they just had arrived, and they probably would have ate a pink sock with some Doritos if I would have dropped it down. So we caught some nice APs on them vertical jigs, and then the next day we went back and they would not touch a vertical jig or a slow pitch jig because I had some guys that had some slow pitch shit. And that previous day was what we called them unicorn days. It was like a unicorn day, man. They ate everything. It was like amazing fishing. And because we were the first ones there, I knew they were going to be there. We got there first, and yeah, we destroyed them. So we caught muttons on jigs. We caught African pompanos. It was just really good. I mean, I even had a sailfish swim up to the boat that day and a couple dolphin, and just one of those days, man, where you're just riding back on a high. And one thing I learned about fishing is, like with anything else, man, everything is so different, and not to ride on those highs for too long. So enjoy the day. Know that next day is going to be different. And sure as shit, we went out there the next day. Different. Fish were biting different. They had what happened was somebody came in later and they were enjoying the good fishing as well. And then when we got back out there that next morning, more and more people were there. And the fish did bite, but they didn't bite on vertical jigs or slow pitch jigs. The fish were eating live baits that day, and yeah, we had a few live baits. We caught a few. It wasn't a unicorn day, but we did catch a few. So it's one thing different about fishing in the Keys and fishing off Miami and in Marathon and Key West and fishing in the deep Gulf. You just don't get that pressure on those spots. Now, our ride to the fishing spots is sometimes 20 to 30 minutes versus where in the Gulf you're like an hour, 2 hours out to some really nice structure in the middle of nowhere where those fish are like they're eating jigs or eating all sorts of stuff. So all sorts of artificials, but there's days out there that I know for a fact that the fish just don't eat anything. I've got a client, he fished with somebody in the Gulf, and there's a bunch of videos out there with them doing some vertical jigging for African pompano. So my client booked a trip, and he went with him, and on the charter, all the guys wanted to catch stuff on jigs. And then the captain said, well, when you're ready to start catching some fish, put away those jigs. So I got a good laugh about that because that's how it goes. Some days they like pizza, some days they like chicken. So I see a lot of guys doing a lot of specialty trips for jigs. That's all great, but I have to tell you guys, as far as a charter goes, I'm never going to go out there with just jigs. Never. Because I see it. I see that some days they want something different, and I don't care how good you are on a jig or how good you are with a dead bait. Some days they just want the live bait. It is what it is. So things change. The moon phases, the current shifts a little bit overnight. The wind is all messed up. It's you got swelly conditions. I don't know. But anyways, so back to African pompanos. So this all goes into it here. So when you're going out to target these fish, everybody wants to catch one on the jig, including myself. But guys, the sharks on the wrecks are they will find you. It's a different world out there. So I want to share a story with you. I love to catch fish on jigs just as much as the next guy. But realistically anymore, depending on where you're fishing and how many boats are there, it's extremely challenging because of the amount of sharks that are there. So when you bring a spinning rod outfit to a wreck, nowadays you hook one on the jig and you start reeling and pumping, that's a shark magnet. That fish starts to spin, and if you've hooked him to where he starts bleeding, it's all over for you, because if you have an angler that can't keep the pressure on that fish and he starts to wear down, that fish is toast. Because basically you've just got a spinning fish in the water that's creating commotion, and it's all over for you. So I hate to tell you, but it is what it is. It's changed definitely, especially off Miami, down through the Keys, all up and down the East Coast. So Key West, I heard, is a nightmare with sharks, but I don't know how it is down there now, but that's just what I'm hearing. So if you're bringing spinning rods, I don't know. I should share a story with you. The last time I went jigging, I'd done this a couple times now just to prove a point to people. We went through, and the client was on me about wanting to use a spinning rod, and I'm like, okay, we'll try it here in a second. So anyway, so I made sure that I had close to my limit, so I had enough fish. And then I said, okay, let's use the spinning rod. Sure enough, he hooked the fish, and sure enough, it got sharp because he couldn't handle bringing the fish up. And we lost a beautiful mutton snapper on the jig, probably about a nice 28-inch fish we hooked on the jig. And, I'm using Shimano twin powers. I lock down the drag and after they're hooked, and, the fish just spins and creates commotion and starts to bleed, and it's all over. So adapt and overcome, or else you're just going to continue getting your ass kicked by the sharks. It's a different world out there, and if the more we continue to fight not using heavier tackle, the more we're going to continue to get our asses kicked. So when I see people posting they got sharked, and then I look and see what type of tackle they're using, and I'm like, yeah, and they fight it. If you're continuing to fight something and not adapt and overcome, you're going to get left in the weeds, and somebody's going to mow the grass over the top of you, and it's probably going to be a shark. So figure it out. If you're getting sharked, you got to figure it out. Heavier tackle, bend butt rods, and then just know, you just got to learn how to fight from a bent butt. It is what it is. Oh, I don't like to fight bent butts. Oh, tough shit. So I love it when guys pull up next to me and they got stand-up gear and spinning rods and stuff. And I just tell the guys, just watch. They're going to catch one or two, and they're going to start getting sharked. And sure as shit they do. Or they pull up, they put the trolling motor down, they catch 2 or 3 small fish, and then the fish go lockjaw on them, and then they start getting sharked because they're stationary. It is what it is, man. Technology is something, but a trolling motor sitting on a wreck is going to, you're going to have unicorn day, and somebody's going to find out about it, and then it's all over with it. Then once they get out there, they see you sitting on your spot, you're a sitting target for those guys with radars. So, just saying. Okay, back to APs. So all this is tying in with APs because a lot of the spots off Key Largo all the way down to Marathon, the Thunderbolt wreck is loaded with African pompanos, okay? The Eagle wreck, really good. Now, all those public numbers in off Alligator, like in the zones of like 220 and the 180, really good African pompano spots. Really good. They kind of, off of Pickles, all those numbers are really good. So all those numbers are on the hotspots maps. Pick those out. Like the Dwayne wreck will have some really nice African pompanos on it. And then they tend to show up first, and then the permit tend to follow. So I've had some awesome days when I'll go out there, and you'll see those African pompanos up on the first ball of the Dwayne before all the other people get out there, or in the late afternoon after people leave, after they've been yellowtail fishing. And you can free line a crab to them on the surface. So, and then they'll eat it. It's pretty amazing when you do that. They eat the same as the permit. You just get, like I said, if the current's moving to the north, you just go to the south and set up, and then just free line your bait back into them. You got to have your guy on the wheel really working at positioning the motor to where you can free line that crab back to them. When you do cast to them, you got to make a splash, and they'll attack it. They are extremely picky. I do really well with them on pilchards. Pilchards are candy to those APs. Crabs, light tackle, 30. I like to go 30 to 40 pound fluorocarbon. You can get away with going 50 and sometimes 60. 50 seems to be like a good number. So, but if I'm fishing a pressured rack, I like to make sure that I'm really light. And 30 pound is a lot. It doesn't chafe off as long as you're using circles. Small hooks for the pilchards. Now they do bite light, and it's hard to explain how a African pompano eats because they'll suck it in and they'll spit it out. So if you're constantly like having baits that a fish, he'll run with it, and then all of a sudden the fish will drop it, and that's more than likely an AP or AP. So they are extremely picky, and they're sensitive to the weights as well. So the Carolina rig works very well. Like I said, chicken rigs work wonders. Okay, and this time of year you can really catch some really big mutton snappers mixed in with the APs on big squid. Now, if you guys didn't see the video that last year that I put out with Land Shark, I was using big squid for muttons, and yeah, it works really well with long leaders. It just, when you're making your drift, you just basically what I do is I like to bring that weight off the bottom about 60 feet. And how I measure that is how I know that it's 60 feet. It just really depends. I mean, you got a lot of factors into play out there. You got drift, and you got, are you vertical? Are you free drifting? So how do you measure like feet? You can have the counted line. I don't really like that. What I do is I just count. I have I count the revolutions on my reel, so I know that for every one crank is 3 feet for the Shimano Talicas on the Talica 25s. So if I'm fishing with a chicken rig for APs, or if I want to bring a heavy weight off the bottom to like 60, around 50 to 60 foot, I'll tell my angler to reel it 20 times, and then I'll watch it. I can just tell how many. I make sure I keep a close eye on the angler and how many turns. So I'll count in my head, so I know exactly where he's at. So that 20 times is equivalent to 60 feet off the bottom. Just depending on the drift. There's so many different factors in there, but it gives you kind of a rough idea where your weight's at. Okay. Now that's for the Shimano's, the Shimano Talicas 25s and 20s and 50s. I think the 50 might have a different, might be a little different, but I don't know. Anyways, that's just I fished the Shimano 25s on the bottom. And then I was fishing the 20s, but I just didn't like the how the 20s performed when it came to mutton fishing and stuff. And so I made the switch this year to Talica 25s. I'm very happy with those. And then we added power handles as well, just for the ease of the angler. So they really help. And then we've got some customized stand-up rods made for bent butts. Just so I can re-angle, and we made a lot of changes for our bottom fishing for APs and mutton snappers for this season. But for baits, I know guys that catch them on pinfish. I know guys that, like I said, you catch them on big squid. And I mean, I showed you guys how you can catch big muttons on squid. So it's winter time. Don't overthink it. So it's really about the presentation, okay? You have to have confidence. I have confidence in that bait, and you got to keep it simple. Don't need a lot of shit when you go African pompano fishing. You need some weights. I prefer 20-ounce leads. I know where I'm at on the bottom. Long-ass leaders. You have to adjust your leaders accordingly. That's all I'm going to say. I've got an audio available where I talk about leader length and what I'm doing. So there's an audio for sale on my goodkarmafishingtackle.com. I really go into a lot of detail in that audio, and it's a long audio. So I think I rambled on. I probably might have put a little bit too much in it. But anyways, fishing spots. Everybody wants to talk about fishing spots for African pompanos. Guys, I've caught a lot of African pompanos on live bottom. They move in and out. They'll go to racks. They'll be on live bottom. So northern Key Largo tends to be like a really good area on the public numbers up there, and like 180. Those are really good. The Northern Lights, they call it, wreck up there is really good for APs. The Eagle wreck, really good for APs. The Duane and the Bib wreck off Key Largo. You've got then you've got the regular like numbers off the hotspots map. are really good. I mean, they show up. They're there. So you just, some days there's going to be a bunch of amberjacks there, and other days there's going to be a bunch of APs. It just depends. It's fishing, and that's the fun of it. You can't control what bites, so you best have your tackle prepared to catch a 50 to 60 pound amberjack and get it done really quick. Otherwise, you're going to be on that jack for a good amount of time, and then what's going to happen is that if you're there with the light tackle trying to catch APs, and then you hook a big jack, that's like 40 minutes, sometimes a half an hour. That's half an hour time, a half an hour wasted. So just keep that in mind when you're going to go do that kind of stuff. So when we go to do this type of fishing, my gear is, we got to go like with nice tackle, heavy stuff. We got to be able to get the jacks done and get them done quick so we can stay on top of the muttons or African pompanos. Okay, so also too, when you're fishing for those fish like they're like mutton snappers. They're crab crunchers. They bite really light. Okay, they bite really light, and what'll happen is they'll grab a hold of it, and you won't even know you have them. So you got to really be know that it can be a very soft bite, and what'll happen is the fish will run with it for just a little while, or you'll watch it like he's crunching at it, and then you won't see anything on there. Well, the fish is probably sleeping on it, and he's probably there, or he's just going to eat the shit out of it. So that's one thing about using pilchards. They really smash those baits. They smash them. So just that's another little tip for you. If you're not getting a bite, you got to lighten it up. And you got to figure out the tides. Sometimes they bite in the morning. Sometimes they bite in the evening. I've had my best luck with those fish late in the day when the light's low. So, and then you also got to figure out the patterns of when they're biting as well. They just don't bite when you think they're going to bite. So, just how it goes. Got to know when the shit's biting. So you might go to a wreck where the APs are at and don't catch anything, but then the guy comes like 2 hours later and then he bites. So it is what it is. You got to have patience, and that's how it works with those big fish. They just, some days they go off, and then the other days you got to fish the bite times. Just how it goes. You got to figure that kind of stuff out. And how do you do that? You build relationships. You join specific forums. You can join my Good Karma Sport Fishing rigging crew. We share information in there. For example, last week we had a backside of the moon bite. We kind of dialed in on the times that the fish were biting, and yeah, it saved us gas money. That's for sure. I went out and caught mine within an hour. So that kind of information helps. And insider knowledge that you can't find on YouTube. Yeah, you can't find. I mean, it's just nice to have like relationships with guys that you can trust and build, and just it's pretty awesome. So if you're interested in joining the crew, we had an amazing meeting last week where I've got some special things and events planned for the guys in Crew 1, and yeah, I brought in some kick-ass instructors last week. The knowledge from how you reel and tackle, the knowledge that those guys got in 1 hour was amazing. So I just want to thank How You Reelin' from Eric and Nick for doing that. That was a badass seminar, man. So thank you guys. So guys, African pompanos, they're like muttons. They're really picky. Carolina rigs work very well with them. Free lining the baits back on the bottom until the fish picks it up so they don't feel the lead. The typical South Florida drift fishing rig. You got your Carolina rig, and you're just constantly free lining it until they eat it. So you'll feel a slight pickup, a slight runoff, and then you set the hook. Baits, like I said, big squid. Love big squid in the wintertime. Love it, love it, love it. I'm talking about I pick out the largest squid I can find for APs, for big muttons, so they'll just suck it down. They cannot resist that, especially when I add some special sauce to it. They really like that. And yeah, I've got my special sauce course available of what I add to as far as scent goes in the wintertime. It really works in the winter. So you can purchase that course, and there's a little audio. I show you guys exactly what I use. What else we got with those fish? Yeah, I don't know. I treat them like mutton snappers. Carolina rigs work really well. Wrecks, you got to really look around on your sonar and find them. see where they're at. Sometimes they'll set up that's why I like the drift fish. The fish move around, they have fins. So just because the current's moving in one direction doesn't mean they're going to like be in the same spot that you were yesterday. So you just kind of got to move around until you find them. So, and if you're using vertical jigs, I like to use small 150 grams. My favorite jigs are the hollow glow and the super glow jigs for like just the all white super glow jigs that look like just have a squid profile. Those are my favorite for. I've caught so many nice fish on those hollow glows and the glow jigs. I don't know. I'm trying to think what else for those fish. I don't know. It's all I know is that they're biting, and they bite on the same moon phases that the muttons bite on, 3 to 4 days before the moon, the new moon, the back side of the moon. If you guys really want to get dialed in on the bite, then I suggest that you guys go to my blog site, and I've got so many different things on there about how to get dialed in on a solar lunar phase bites, solar lunar with bottom fishing. If you guys aren't doing that, you guys are missing out, man. I'm trying to figure out bite scenarios and stuff, and go through and I kind of lay it out to you in the blog about putting together a bite scenario, picking your days, when to go, major minors. And you got to know too when there's going to be patterns when the current picks up. There's going to be days that the current, you may not have any current for like between like 9 and 12 o'clock in the morning, but then the current picks up in the afternoon. So there's all those different phases that local information will help. And that's where those relationships come into play and knowing people. So, and relationships take time to build. I just don't share that with just a random. You're going to have the APs will move in and off pickles when you're chumming. So I've caught big African pompanos on yellowtail jigs, like free-lining yellowtail baits. Yeah. Or on the bottom, they're just during like the month of May, April. So just keep that in mind. But typically your African pompanos show up first, and then your permit show up next. Be careful of not overfishing them. And when you go in and hammer 5 or 6 African pompanos, those fish have survival instincts, and then they tend to get lockjaw sooner. And then they quit biting for you, or they move on. And I'm seeing that now more than ever on certain areas where fish will, especially on high pressured areas where they'll bite a little bit, then they'll stop. Gag groupers, for example, and are the same as muttons. We used to have this area that we used to fish for gags, and it was a lot of fun while it lasted, but somebody found out about it and it was all over. But we used to catch them on like plugs and shit, and yeah, but then they would bite for a little while. Then what would happen is that they would quit biting after you missed a couple. It would shut the whole damn school down. So then you try to free line them back some baits, some live baits, and they would eat it, and then they would stop again. So then you're basically screwed. So just keep that in mind. There's some days it's going to be like that. It is what it is. They're fish. They don't bite the way that you think they would bite, and APs are the same. So again, I do personally feel that the pilchard is the best bait, and then then a nice crab. Make sure you crack the crab a little bit to get the scent going. I mean, that's just is what it is with that. You can crack it just a little bit. It doesn't have to be alive. If the fish is really active and he's not eating very well, then try cracking that crab a little bit to get that scent going. Personally, I like to sort out and find the shredder crab, a crab that's shredding, and that tends to set out like a soft crab, tends to get the bite first on picky days with those fish. So try that. It's tough, but like I said, when you go to a bait store, it's hard to pick out crabs that are shredders. So tip that. One little tip is make sure you tip that bait guy that's dipping those crabs, because he probably will let you sort through the crabs and find the shredders, but or find a good bait supplier, or catch your own crabs for bait. So just know that there's lots of rules and regulations with using crabs, and like blue crabs, for example, make great AP bait. So you just have to find if you find the shredders, you're doing really good. Again, you can crack them and just get a little bit of scent going. The fish will eat that dead, like going out of style. So especially when you're looking for like those big cuberas, they like the shredder the most, and something about that gets them all fired up. Yeah. Oh, and if you're free lining on a wreck too, and with no current, just know they're just like yellowtail fish. If you're at anchor and you're free lining a jig back for the LPs, just know you just have to match the jig to the sink, and free line it down to them, and then wait for them to pick it up. They bite just like a yellowtail. They're going to run off with it and hammer it, just like muttons do when you're flatlining for them on the reef. So with large pieces of bait, they do the same thing. It's like, I don't know, try some bonito meat. Everything likes bonito meat. But I caution you guys from using the bonito meat anymore, because what happens is that little bit of scent in the water can get it pretty sharky pretty quick. Yeah, it's great bait, but I don't know. I try to stay away from that shit as much as possible now. So, also too, find your own spots. Find some new spots that haven't been touched. I stumbled upon a nice AP hole last spring, last fall, and they were stacked on top of it, and we just floated across with butterfly goggle eyes, and we tore them up. So, butterfly gog works, I know, for APs, because I catch them on them all the time, because you guys know that my favorite mutton snapper bait is butterfly goggle eyes. And when you're presenting a dead bait to an AP, you got to make sure your bait's cut right. It's all about the presentation, and if the presentation's off, that fish is not going to eat it. Is it spinning? Are you using ball bearing swivels? If you're not, I highly suggest that you do that. Yeah, I think that's all I got. I gave you guys enough. It's really about finding an area that has APs on them, and I give you enough fishing spots so you can catch one. So, I mean, all those numbers off of alligator hold, especially on the Eagle wreck, the Dwayne wreck, the Pickles barge. All those areas have APs, so they've had them for years, and there's no secrets anymore when it comes to those fishing spots. So everybody knows, and it's really about like being able to be out there when they first show up. So what I suggest for you guys is that on days when you're wahoo fishing and there's not anybody there, and it's a light day, is that you make a pass. You make a pass over it and see. Usually when there's nobody there and the fish haven't been touched, they smash it. Like the big yellow jacks on those. There's really big yellow jacks on the Dwayne and on the bib. Nice yellow jacks are mixed in. The yellow jacks are mixed in with the APs. Big jumbo shrimp, guys. Big jumbo shrimp for the those big yellow jacks. Okay, the big yellow jacks love big jumbo shrimp on this time of year. You cannot go wrong with small pilchards and jumbo shrimp. Okay, so there's a lot of tackle shops, especially on the mainland, that have lots of big jumbo shrimp. So big jumbo live shrimp work really well for those big yellow jacks. Sometime I'll tell you guys about how I train them, those big yellow jacks. I'll train them to get really. I'll work on a school of yellowtails for a while, and they'll the big the big yellow jacks will be in the same areas, and I'll get them so stupid over if I'm working yellowtails for like 3 days in April or May and catching groupers. That same yellow jacks will be there, and they're really picky in the slick. And one thing about those big yellow jacks is they don't like to. If you can see them, they can see you, and they're dialed in on little pieces of chum. So what I like to do is I'll have the angler stand way back and way up in the bow, and then I'll shake the bag, and then I'll stand way back so they can't try not to see me, and then I'll have them throw the live shrimp or a little piece of white skin just to try to match that chum, and then like a piece of white skin, that like mullet skin that matches the chum that's being distributed, and I'll shake the bag. I'll have that angler walk way in the bow, and I'll have him throw it back into the slick, and then those big yellow jacks typically eat it when they can't see you. So there's another way to catch them when they do that too, and I won't share that with you, but I think you guys know how to do it. So that's a little bonus tip for you too. Sometimes it's not about the size of the bait. Sometimes they're dialed in on little small stuff, and usually those big giant yellow jacks that show up in the slick, those fish are dialed in on small pieces of chum. You catch them on the bits of shrimp. You catch them on live shrimp. You catch them on those little pilchards. They like those, and yeah, that's how I do it. I don't know how everybody else does it. I don't really care. I just do my own thing. I've got confidence in what I do, and I really want you guys to know that confidence about it. It's about keeping it simple. You don't need a lot of shit, and collaboration with other folks to get better. Okay, Good Karma Rigging Crew is a good place to start if you really want to get better. And what I got planned for the crew this year is amazing. And if you really want a more advanced learning, then the Good Karma Rigging Crew 2 starts. Our first meeting is January 24th. So if you're interested in joining the crew 2, you can email me at goodkarmaryan@gmail.com. If you want to start with crew 1, it's a commitment. I only want people in there that really want to learn and want to get better. Yeah, that's it. Check out some of my courses on there. That audio that I got out there with mutton fishing is really good. I give a lot of information in there, and then I also share what type of scent that I use as well that will definitely change your wintertime fishing, especially for deep dropping, for golden tiles. I got some guys that are using that stuff. It's really good. Oh my God. Anyways, that's all I got. I rambled on a while. I gave you guys a lot of information, and that's what the podcast is all about. Like I said, I'm back to the original content, and some podcasts are going to be more fiery, and sometimes it's just going to be kind of chill, and that's just me. There's Ryan, and then there's there's Ryan that's super chill, and there's Ryan that's super fired up, and that's just my personality, and I'm not changing for anybody, anytime, any soon. So thanks for tuning in. If you're looking to book a trip with me, I've got a couple dates left open in January, not many. And then February, we're still going to be live bait wahoo fishing, doing a little bit of trolling, live bait wahoo fishing, and then some wreck fishing, patry fishing on windy days. So yeah, we're going to wahoo fish until the end of March, more than likely, and then we're going to switch it on over to doing some more bottom fishing and maybe do some dolphin fishing this year. I don't know. It depends on if any dolphins show up. We'll see. They got to be sizable before I'll go after them. That's it. Thanks for tuning in, guys. You can follow me on Instagram, Good Karma Sport Fishing _FL_keys. You can check out my website, my blog at goodkarmasportfishing.com. Oh, I got one new blog out. I forgot to tell you guys. The replacement hooks for wahoos and what I'm using. Make sure you check out that blog. It's called The Best Replacement Hooks for Wahoo Fishing. That's it. And remember, anytime you're fishing, it's all good.